Coming up on today's show, some news and rumor items coming out of the NFL Combine. And that is wrapped, and we are back from Indianapolis. Ezeiruaku surgery news, the latest on George Pickens. A Brandon Aubrey deal might be a bit closer than previously thought, and the Kenny Clark outlook with some of it being good and some not so good. First, maybe the not so good. That is Ezeiruaku undergoing surgery. Todd Archer reporting he actually had it about 5 weeks ago. So that would put it back in January, which is a good thing to repair a torn hip labrum. He actually played through it over the course of the season. I do not know when that came about. You cannot even roll out the possibility of hey, he just did not tell people because he did not want to get shut down. He is going to miss most of the offseason program, but should be able to return in time for training camp, which you want him back by training camp, or else an already thin room gets a little bit dicey. Help us wish a speedy recovery for Ezeiruaku. Hit that like button if you have not already. Free, simple, and easy to do. Show some love. Help get Ezeiruaku healthier sooner than later. Let us go to the latest now on George Pickens. Nick Harris reports the Cowboys and the Pickens camp have not really had any real contract negotiations. Nothing in depth or nothing that really kind of got the ball rolling, which I do not like. Because it is a little bit different. I remember many combines ago when Stephen Jones said he was not even going to talk about if they met with Lamb and Dak. And I went, that is weird because you have to. And then they did not. And that is when I knew, this is not going to go well. I do not expect a deal to get done for George Pickens, at least not before free agency, probably not before the draft. And I think we are going to have another saga that takes us into July, right up to that franchise tag deadline extension window. The Cowboys seem willing to wait and see if Pickens shows up to the offseason workouts. Those begin on April 20th, right before the NFL draft. I would be a bit surprised if he showed up, especially for the offseason workouts. Will George Pickens have to play on the tag? That is another way of asking, will they get a long-term deal done? Y for yes and N for no. Go ahead and let me know in the comments section of today's show. Will George Pickens end up having to play on the franchise tag? Look, the delay between the Cowboys and Pickens actually kind of seems to be on Dallas's side. The Pickens camp is not waiting out and inserting some deal here the way that maybe in previous years was a factor. The Cowboys seem content and fine and happy to keep him on the tag, which I do not love because you could have brought down that franchise tag hit. The cap hit would have been about half of that with an extension. I do not think the Pickens camp feels the exact same way. I know what Jerry and Steven said. Pickens said some things. We have not heard from them, though. I think we are heading towards July drama. A team, by the way, is not going to come in and make a $40 million a year offer and give up 2 first-round picks for George Pickens. I do not think there is going to be a lot of actual traction on that front. I do not think there are going to be a lot of teams doing your work for you. So we are just kind of at this standstill. I would like if it changed quickly. It certainly could if they wanted to make it happen. But I almost wonder if this becomes a July storyline more than the March one I was hoping it was going to be. The Brandon Aubrey saga at the NFL Combine with reports saying he wants $10 million and the Cowboys made a $7.5 million offer. That was also not true, and Calvin apologized for it. It seems to have been a bit blown out of proportion. There was a report from Tony Pauline, who is not a credible reporter, that there was a shouting match multiple times on the bus. And I do not think that was true either. By the way, Nick Harris has some good notes here that the Cowboys have offered a market-setting contract, which, by the way, happened before the season, and they have increased it since then. And despite some other reports, negotiations have not been tense. They are not in a bad spot, despite, again, what people like Pauline may have reported. At minimum, Aubrey is going to get hit with the RFA tender for a second-round pick at a decent chunk of change. But Nick Harris and ESPN mentioned this as well. Maybe they do not have to do that. Or maybe they get a deal done in the next 2 weeks or so. Maybe even before that RFA deadline on March 11th. The question is not, is Aubrey the highest paid kicker in the NFL? It is by how much is he the highest paid kicker in the NFL? Now, what is the most per year you would end up paying Brandon Aubrey? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. The Cowboys do not have to bend to every request from the athlete's first agency here. The second round tender at $577 million is in their back pocket that they can apply if they want to. An extension would keep that cap hit number a little bit lower in the end. It is not going to be a $10 million deal, I do not think. There had been some questionable reporting involved on that one as well. The highest right now is $6.4 million for Harrison Butker. That is going to get beaten. In fact, to the extent that I think the $10 million number was kind of maybe more of a last year request than anything else. Guaranteed money matters a lot here. $17.75 million is what Butker makes on top of that. Aubrey will beat that. If he wants 10, he is not getting 10 because I can just give him the RFA tender. I have the franchise tag next year if I so need it. So he is not going to get 10. But 7 or something in that ballpark, maybe pushing to 8. But I am not so sure. That one is much more doable and realistic. If you have not already hit that subscribe button, free Cowboys videos each and every single day, multiple times per day, right here on the channel. Finally, some more moves are going to come, whether it is right before free agency or early on in it. We will see. The Cowboys are going to make more moves this week to free up salary cap space. There are some easy ones with Schefter saying they are going to restructure some guys. And there is the one big, more complicated one, which is Kenny Clark. Cowboys, currently factoring in the George Pickens franchise tag, are $56 million over the cap. Good news. That does not actually mean anything because simply by restructuring, as always was the plan, guys, like Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and Tyler Smith, they get several $1 million under the salary cap. That does not include the second round tenders, though. Plus, they have got to go sign more guys. Quinnen Williams with a restructure without a new deal would save you $14.59 million. Osa would save you $12 million, by the way. We will come back to Kenny Clark because that is the one that is tricky. But without touching Clark's deal or Deron Bland's deal or Drake Ferguson's deal, that is already $38 million in salary cap space. $38 million. But you want more than that to go spend some money in free agency. So what should Dallas do with Kenny Clark in particular? E for extend him, R for restructure it and just push the money off into the future, or C for cut? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Now, Kenny Clark does have a deadline here. He is due a $21 million roster bonus that becomes guaranteed on March 13th, so just over 10 days away here. A restructure, because there are no more void years left on his deal, would save about $9.6 million. An extension could make that closer to $15 million because of how much time is left on each of the contracts there. There is some flexibility for the Cowboys to save even more money by extending him. Here is what Nick Harris wrote on Kenny Clark. If they cannot come to an agreement, Dallas could release Kenny Clark. No issues attached. There is no guaranteed money. That is not expected to happen. So expect an extension for Kenny Clark soon. I would like to extend Big Q as well, because I gave up so much for him. I do not know if they want to see how he fits in the defense or whatever, and they do not want to acknowledge they made a mistake with the Micah trade. So they are going to focus on Kenny Clark first. That is in play here. But I can settle for having Kenny Clark on this team for multiple more years. Frankly, the Cowboys need that money. Part of it might be how the negotiations are going. Do they try to add some void years to it? Cowboys need that money. That would then give them close to or above $50 million in salary cap space, just like that. That includes the George Pickens franchise tag. Does it include RFA tenders that are coming for Aubrey if needed? TJ Bass as well, but that is $50 million, including the George Pickens tag, not including the RFA tenders. You need that money because you have got to go sign multiple players in free agency. So more news to come in the coming days. Hopefully more of it is good than bad. That is going to wrap up our post-combine breakdown. A lot of moving pieces right now. Ezeiruaku surgery is concerning for an already thin edge room, but at least he will be back for camp. The Pickens situation is frustrating because we could have avoided this drama with a proactive extension. Aubrey seems closer to a deal than the bad reports suggested, which is good news. And Kenny Clark looks like he is heading toward an extension, which would give the Cowboys significant cap flexibility. The next couple weeks are going to be huge. We have the Kenny Clark deadline on March 13th. We have the RFA deadline on March 11th. And then free agency opens right after that. This team has the ability to have $50 million or more in cap space if they play their cards right. That is enough to make real moves in free agency and address the defensive issues that plagued them last season. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss any of the breaking news. These moves could come at any time, and we will have the full breakdown for you when they do. Drop your answers in the comments. Will Pickens play on the tag? What would you pay Aubrey? And what should Dallas do with Kenny Clark? I want to hear from all of you. We will catch you in the next one.